Coming up on Tech News Today, Google's turning it around, how Steve Jobs used patents as a weapon, and Nokia's best camera in a phone yet. All that and more coming up.
Netcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for Tech News Today is provided by CashFly at CACHEFLY.com.
This is Tech News Today for Wednesday, January 23rd, 2013. Tech News Today is brought to you by Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. For a free trial and 10% off your first purchase on new accounts, go to squarespace.com and use offer code TNT1. And they recently launched a developer platform for complete code control. And by RingCentral. We do everything in the cloud. That's why we love our cloud-based phone system by RingCentral. Zero startup costs, and RingCentral is $20 a month per user. Try it now with a 30-day risk-free trial. Buy one desk phone, get a second phone free, up to 20 phones. Call 800-543-9980 or visit ringcentral.com and use our promo code TWIT. Welcome to Tech News Today. I'm Tom Merritt.
I'm Ayaz Akhtar.
And I'm Jason Howell.
Sarah Lane, you may or may not have heard, she posted it on Twitter, was in a car accident yesterday. She's okay, but she's got a lot to deal with today, so she won't be on the show. She's expecting to be back with us tomorrow, so we wish her well and really sorry about your car.
Yeah.
But let's start off with the top 10 stories of the day in the news feeds. Headlines declare at the end of an era, and Intel confirmed it will ramp down its desktop motherboard business over the next 3 years. Of course, Asus, ASRock, and Gigabyte will still make motherboards, so we're not going to lose desktop motherboards. And they will work with Intel's desktop chipsets. But the Haswell motherboards from Intel will be Intel's last hurrah.
The Verge reports Nokia is working on a new Windows phone that will have a similar camera sensor as the 41-megapixel Nokia 808 PureView handset. The new phone will feature a new design that will impact the Lumia line. Say goodbye to polycarbonate and hello to aluminum. The EOS phone is expected in the early summer. That's the code name.
RIM wants businesses to know it doesn't mind if Samsung makes fun of the fact that it's for business. BlackBerry Enterprise 10 is now available for download and allows for managing old and new BlackBerry OSs as well as iOS and, yes, Android phones. New customers can get a 60-day free trial of BlackBerry Enterprise Server, and existing customers can take advantage of an upgrade program.
The lawsuit that alleges Apple, Google, Intel, and others illegally agreed to not poach each other's employees is underway. In court filings, it was revealed that Steve Jobs threatened Palm with a patent lawsuit if Palm CEO Edward Colligan didn't agree to the non-poaching scheme. The statement came from Colligan himself, who said to Jobs that Palm would retaliate with its own claims based on patents if necessary.
Google impressed analysts with its fourth quarter numbers, even with the confusing accounting required to account for the sale of the Motorola Home division. Google reported revenues of $14.42 billion, up 36% year over year, and non-GAAP earnings per share was $10.65, up from $9.50 a year ago. Overall, Google attributed the good news to growth in advertising in mobile and YouTube. The stock market seemed to like the stock and sent it back on the rise.
Nintendo announced it's going to bolster the Nintendo Wii U game library. The GameCube game Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker is getting remade with HD graphics and is scheduled for the fall. 2 more Mario games are coming, including a new Mario Kart. If you want older games, Nintendo announced its Nintendo Virtual Console will be available in the spring. If you bought games on the Virtual Console for the Wii, you'll have to pay $1 to $1.50 more to re-download new Wii U versions.
Apple has pulled the 500px and the ISO 500 photo apps. An Apple reviewer said the update couldn't be approved because it allowed users to search for nude photos in the apps. PX does not allow pornographic images, but it does allow professional photographers to post nudes. The app defaults to a safe search that excludes the nudes and requires users to visit their desktop website to enable nude searching on the app. Still, that was not enough for Apple, and they pulled the app.
When the sort of successor to Mega Upload Mega launched, users found out they had no way to change their password. Mega said if you lost your encryption key, you'd be locked out of your files and your account. However, Mega will soon allow users to change or reset their password. One thing, though, a reset password only lets users back into their account. files encrypted with the previous key would no longer be readable.
AMD announced its earnings on Tuesday, and with annual revenue at $5.4 billion, down 17% over a year ago. It's not great news. AMD ended 2012 with a net loss of $1.18 billion. They'll reduce their workforce as a cost-cutting measure, but AMD still expects revenue to fall between 6 and 12% in Q1, even with those workforce reductions.
DARPA announced its next step in a project it calls Phoenix. The Phoenix project involves reusing parts from retired satellites in space to put them in working order. It's not really repair as much as it's like recycling or Frankensteining. The project effectively would send a robot mechanic into space to remove parts from existing satellites and reuse them. The robot would be controlled via automation and by human operators via teleoperations. DARPA hopes to have a working demo of Phoenix by 2015. Robot mechanics in space.
Awesome.
I love science.
This episode of Tech News Today brought to you by Squarespace, the fast and easy way to create a high-quality website, blog, or online portfolio. Just using it yesterday. swordandlaser.com. I got a new audio podcast up, and Squarespace is the way we publish it. Makes it fast and easy. As soon as I'm done with the episode, throw those show notes in there. All I have to think about is the content, the layout, the design, the images. Those are all handled by Squarespace system. In fact, they resize your images 7 times to make sure you got the right size for the right screen. They have mobile responsive design, so if somebody's looking at it on a little tiny 3.5-inch screen, the site still looks just as good and just as professionally designed as it does on one of those big 32-inch screens. And Squarespace is reliable. They have servers that keep your site up. Legendary from the Sandy hurricane when they were pulling buckets of fuel up the stairs at the Colo, along with a couple of other sites that are hosted there to keep those sites online. And Squarespace is exceptionally well designed. Squarespace has an award-winning design team and user experience experts. All your website needs: domains, design, development, hosting, customer support, all taken care of. But you don't have to take our word for it. Try it out for free. Sign up for a free account. No credit card needed. Just try it out. Start building a website. And if you decide to purchase it, use the offer code TNT1 and get 10% off your first purchase on new accounts. That's squarespace.com. Try it out. Use that offer code TNT1. Everything you need to create an exceptional website. And we thank Squarespace for their support of Tech News Today. All right, well, we may be missing Sarah Lane, but very happy to have Natalie Morris, nataliemorris.com, with us today. How's it going, Natalie? You have a guest in the room with you, I hear.
I do. She's trying to be quiet. They're playing with a couple of oranges. I have my daughter sitting on the floor next to me. She's about 8 months old, but she's very passionate about Google earnings. So
That's true.
I decided to let her sit in.
We were discussing those with her before the show. Well, it's 2 for 1 then. That's awesome.
Yeah, she has to sit in with me on a lot of things. I'm actually pursuing an MBA lately, and I've been studying financial sheets a lot. So it's good for me to talk about Google earnings right now.
You're playing professional basketball?
Yeah, an MBA.
Oh,
yes.
MBA. Sorry.
I'm a little short for the NBA.
Right.
Not that I still don't dream.
Point guard. Yeah. Let's start off with those Google earnings. Net profit up 7%. Profits had fallen pretty sharply in Q3, so that was big news. International markets grew revenue 23%. Where this stuff becomes interesting is in the earnings call. Larry Page said they created growth in ads both on mobile and on YouTube. Cost per click was down 6% year over year, but it rose 2% over the previous quarter. And cost per click, without getting too technical on what it means, is an indicator of how well that advertising business is doing. The fact that it had been continually declining was a concern for a lot of people. Now that decline is slowing. It hasn't turned around yet, but it's slowing. That's good news. Traffic acquisition costs were stayed stable. A couple of nifty numbers he threw out. Psy generated $8 million on the video Gangnam Style.
That's crazy.
So he's doing okay as well.
Yeah.
And they talked up mobile. They hinted about tackling battery life. They were mentioning Motorola. He was talking about battery life. And a quote from Page, he said, when you drop your phone, it shouldn't go splat. So they didn't talk about Google+. They didn't talk about social at all. They almost ignored Facebook's graph search. He just said, hey, we're good at search. We think we're going to continue to be good at search. But it was really nifty to hear him talking about hardware again. Don't you think, Ayaz?
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, I think Larry Page did an interview with, I want to say either Fast Company or Wired. I can't remember right off the top of my head. But he did talk about how phones were going to change a whole lot in the next 5 to 10 years, and talked a little bit how they were going to be hands-off with Motorola. So it'd be interesting if their contribution, if Google's contribution to hardware isn't just, these nice fancy phones that run Android cleanly, but devices that can survive being dropped by, I have a 2-year-old, he flings his phones constantly. I think it would be kind of nice to have tough, thin, beautiful devices, maybe from Google's Motorola.
Wouldn't it be cool, Natalie, if Google, instead of fulfilling the fears of people and having them make phones at Motorola that compete with other Android phones, if Google said, let's slowly change Motorola into a research arm that comes out with things like better batteries and more durable phone cases, and then licenses that to everybody? That'd be fun.
I do think that would be fun, although I think that where Android is really missing is in the supply chain and in the protocol for what happens when these phones do go splat. And I was really interested in that quote because my dad has an Android phone on Sprint, and he dropped it with my 2-year-old, actually, like I as his toddler. And so we called the helpline on Sprint, and they said, well, sometimes a local Sprint store can help you fix it, and sometimes you have to send it in. So you have to find a store that will help you. And I was like, that's absurd, because that means the onus is on the consumer to find where the supply chain can help you with that phone. And that's ridiculous. And if you look at Apple, you at least know where to go, and they know what to do about cracked screens. But because Android is so fragmented, that's right, Ava, that's what she had to say. Because Android is so fragmented, there really is no set supply chain in place for when these phones do go splat. So that needs to be fixed. Not just that the phones shouldn't go splat, because inevitably they are going to. What happens then? They need to fix that.
Yeah, I agree. I think that points the way to a really interesting area for Google to investigate. I'm sure they have plenty better ideas than I will have. But the idea of creating, and somebody in the chat room said open source hardware, creating sort of a pool of hardware advancements that end up helping people make better phones. I mean, you might think, well, that's crazy. Why would they give away hardware designs? But they give away the operating system, and it seems to work really well for them. So it's not totally crazy. And if you get an open platform, then those supply chain systems become less of an issue, because people can start to use interchangeable parts more often and just differentiate on design. Is that crazy talk?
Well, I'm thinking about how Google would actually take care of this. Maybe they're not concerned necessarily about the hardware itself, but at the experience from moving from one phone to the next. So if you did have a smashed phone, you're like, what do I do now? Android's been really good at being able to download all your applications again and basically have a consistency from phone to phone. So maybe that's where they can really do a contribution that they already are doing now, but they can create a very smooth transition when your phone goes splat or when you want to switch, because Android and Google Play has all of that stuff backed up for you already.
And I think that really points to how big mobile is in their business now, in their core business. Because if you look over these earnings, you can see that operating income is down year over year. It's just up quarter to quarter. So it was up in the fourth quarter. That was the holidays. But year over year, it actually is not huge. And so, home search on your home computer is becoming more of a niche market to them, even though it is still their bread and butter. But, they're starting to get more butter, I guess, with mobile.
And with jelly bean,
actually. Butter.
Yeah.
More mobile butter. There's your show title, guys. You're well
done. It's already. I see Ayaz.
I'm writing it in right now. There you go.
Well, we do need you to talk about the Nokia PureView phone, 40 megapixel phone, 41 megapixel phone, whatever it is. It got people really excited when it was first announced, but we haven't had a phone that took real advantage of it. Is that going to change?
Yeah, when the Nokia 808 PureView was announced a while ago, people were super excited about it. It's that 41 megapixel camera. It technically only takes photos at 38 or 34 megapixels, which is ridiculous. But the phone is so large, the sensor is so large that it had to have a bump out for it. And it also ran Symbian. So people weren't exactly excited about it. But a sensor like the one that's in the PureView is coming to a new Windows phone, codenamed the EOS, kind of like Canon's cameras right now. This is being reported by The Verge. This isn't confirmed yet by Nokia. The new phone, Windows phone, would use aluminum instead of polycarbonate, and it's going to be offered by AT&T in the summer, according to their sources. We've seen a lot of different phone companies manufacturers try to differentiate their phones based on things like audio. Beats, HTC has Beats in it, so it's the best audio experience you can get. That's the claim. Natalie, do you think Nokia can hang its hat on a camera to make its phone stand out in such a diverse market?
You know, I'm so dubious about that because so few people really have problems with their camera phones. Yeah, and I was listening to you guys talk about the mobile operating system of Mozilla yesterday and how consumers don't care about the operating system and how liberated their developers are. So are they really trying to liberate their photos on their phone? I'm not sure, although I have to tell you, a lot of my relatives post some terrible pictures from their iPhone 4S or their iPhone 5s. So, you know, if that could prevent me having to see blurry pictures in my social network feed, then I'm all about it.
I'm definitely one of those people who just doesn't care about the camera in my phone. I never think about it. I don't take that many pictures. When I do, it's more of a, hey, look what I'm doing right now sort of thing rather than trying to take artful photos. My wife is the opposite, though. Eileen complains constantly about the camera in her phone, which to me looks like, it's fine. It takes pictures. Pictures show up. You can tell what they are. But this is really important to a lot of people. So I think this can, I don't think this makes or break Nokia's Windows Phone, but I think it can bring a big niche audience in that might not consider a Windows Phone otherwise. And of course, the more of those kinds of people you can get trying out Windows Phones, then the more they're going to spread it around and show people and tell them about it. So it's certainly not a bad thing.
I mean, that saying is,
and especially when you have little kids and the phone you carry around with you is the main gadget you use to document their lives. So you feel a bit more responsibility with that.
I agree with that.
So it definitely does change. Whereas when I was a single person in Manhattan and just kind of posting about how interesting and fabulous I used to think my life was, it definitely made a bit less difference.
there's that saying where the best camera you have is the one you have on you. That's the real one.
Right.
Because the thing is, you always use your phone because it's there. I know I use my iPad every now and then as a camera. It's not a good idea, as can be attested by Natalie's child there.
Ava.
But Ava, thank you. I think that Nokia could actually make a dent in this because if they're talking about a 41 megapixel camera and they have the ability to show it off, because the weird thing about the 808 is that it had like a 640 by 360 screen. So you had this amazing camera on one end and a really crappy screen on the front. If they can leverage their lenses that they use on Windows Phone and they put it with this, well, theoretically spectacular camera, it could stand out because we've seen how many headlines have we seen with iPhone, the dominant camera on Flickr at this point, because that's a big deal because people are using it. I think they've got a chance with this. You think it's going to make a difference, Jason?
I don't know. I think ultimately it depends on the quality of the photos. For the people that really care about this kind of thing, you know, it kind of goes back to the kind of the megapixel race, right? Megapixels doesn't matter. It's the quality of the electronics and the lens and all of that in combination that makes a pretty photo. So if the photos are great, then yeah, sure, it'll make a difference to a certain group. But like you say, Tom, not everybody cares about taking pictures with their phone. I do. I don't know if that would sway me in this direction though. There's a lot of other variables there.
There's also bandwidth caps. Don't forget caps. You're not going to be uploading a 38 megapixel picture anytime soon.
Bandwidth caps are always a concern. I don't mean to belittle that, but I think we sometimes exaggerate because some bandwidth caps come and go. Comcast doesn't have theirs right now. They say they're going to put it back. They haven't yet. And that stuff seems to adapt as we go along. But it's a fair point.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. What do we know about speed as well? Because if it's an amazing camera, but it takes 30 seconds to open in a mobile device, then I'm giving that a thumbs down.
Capture that. Oh, the moment's gone.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. Let's talk a little bit about history. U.S. Department of Justice filed an antitrust lawsuit against several companies, Apple, Adobe, Google, Intel among them, forced them to dissolve their non-poaching agreements in 2010. There's still another lawsuit about this going on, though, and our old friend Judge Lucy Koh of the Samsung Apple case fame is presiding over a civil complaint filed by 5 former employees. She is allowing documents to be unsealed from the court filing, and they're getting some headlines. Steve Jobs, according to some of these emails in the court filing, threatened Palm CEO Edward Colligan back in 2007 with patent litigation if he didn't stop poaching. Now, we talk about patents, as weapons all the time, but this is using patents as a weapon for something other than licensing agreements. Colligan wrote on August 24th, 2007 to Steve Jobs, "Your proposal that we agree that neither company will hire the other's employees regardless of the individual's desires is not only wrong, it is likely illegal." He wound up the letter saying you can't stop employees leaving anyway, and patent lawsuits would just end up meaning paying lawyers a lot of money. Jobs wrote back, This is not satisfactory to Apple. I'm sure you realize the asymmetry in the financial resources of our respective companies when you say we will both just end up paying a lot of lawyers a lot of money. Take a look at our patent portfolio before you make a final decision here. So this is not a subtle threat. He's bashing him over the head with it. Judge Koh has ordered CEO Tim Cook to give deposition in this case. Of course, Apple says Cook wasn't involved in any of these email exchanges. He didn't know what was going on. He's not going to have much to say. There's also Google in trouble here. Ammon Gashuri informed Eric Schmidt, when Schmidt was CEO, that a recruiter was pursuing Apple employees and would be terminated within the hour for violating the non-poaching agreement. The former head of people operations, Shona Brown, declared it to be, quote, an appropriate response and asked Gashuri to make a public example of the termination. Schmidt asked them to make the dismissal verbal so there was no paper trail. But, of course, there's a paper trail of him asking them to do that. We could talk all day about poaching agreements and non-poaching agreements, what they mean to a free market. This stuff is old news, though. Does it affect how we feel now that these companies have already been punished and dissolved these agreements? Natalie, what do you think?
Oh, muted.
Muted. I'm back. No, I for some reason thought that we knew this from the Steve Jobs biography. Didn't we? I was trying to find if we knew a little bit about it already. We
knew about the non-poaching agreements. We didn't know that he had used patents to threaten Palm. That part was not in the bio.
Okay. I don't know. I mean, Steve Jobs was the kind of guy who was going to dig so deep into his bag of tricks to get what he wanted. So is it really a surprise? Does it change what we know about that now? I mean, yeah, it's oppressive, but we kind of know that about his character.
Yeah, it doesn't change my opinion of Steve Jobs in any way. Like you say, this is kind of what you expect from him. Ayaz, does it change your opinion of how patents should be used? I mean, they're not meant to be used in this manner, for sure.
Yeah, how they're supposed to be used and how they're actually used in business seems to be pretty ugly. I mean, they're supposed to be about, you did your research, you did your development, you put in all this money and time into coming up with something novel, you came up with a method, now you can go use it. It's yours for 20 years or whatever the term is currently. It's just, I mean, that's just the reality of business, it looks like. And Steve Jobs is kind of, I mean, using anything as a club sounds pretty normal from what I've read about him. But I guess I just read this news and I'm just depressed by it. You get all these great companies working together to do something. It's not like on a nice open standard or anything. It's like, let's make sure the employees are screwed. Let's not have like, a easy way to move our content or media, have our stuff interact. No, we'll just keep employees in their place. It's like, if you can have Google, Intel, and Apple and Lucasfilm all talking, why not work on something more fun?
Yeah, like connectivity standards.
But we've learned our lesson from the Apple-Samsung lawsuit that even if you take an employee that has knowledge about a patent and they then exploit that patent into the next product, it's so easy to sue them. So they don't need to do this anymore. So maybe it was just kind of the way it was done in the past, like the old gentleman's agreement, which is a term that I, as a woman hate.
I hope that you're right about that. I hope this is just a practice that was rampant in the mid-2000s and now we've damped down on it. I don't think we've eliminated it. I mean, it was definitely discussed a lot when I was at CNET back in that same time period. But hopefully this has kind of pushed it to the margins, as you might say. Let's take a quick break and thank our other sponsor for today's show, Ring Central. When we built the Twit Studios, we needed to put in a phone system. It's a big place. You can't just have one phone and everybody run downstairs like you could at the old Twit Cottage. But Leo was like, I don't want to spend a bunch of money running this old PBX system and the big business lines. Forget that, Russell said. He's our IT guy. He said, get a cloud-based phone system with Ring Central. That no-brainer. We love Ring Central. Zero startup costs, no PBX hardware to install or maintain. Ring Central allows us to easily customize all of our call handling. You can get your voicemail in your email because it's modern. It understands this data is just data. Give it to you where you need it. And if you got those people who are like, I need a fax, well, you can get a fax from them right on your smartphone. Ring Central offers all-inclusive pricing as low as $20 a month per user. And you can start right now with a 30-day risk-free trial. I have a special offer for our listeners. When you buy one desk phone, get a second phone free up to 20 phones. So they even reduce the cost of the hardware, the actual phones that you're going to put at people's desks. Call this number designated for our listeners, 800-543-9980. That's 800-543-9980. Once again, 800-543-9980. Or you can go to ringcentral.com and use promo code TWIT. That's ringcentral.com, promo code TWIT. And we thank them for their support of Tech News Today. So there's a Pinterest competitor, sort of, ish, out there called Snippet that Yahoo has snapped up. What's up with this story, Ayaz?
Snippet has been snapped up, as you put it. It's also been closed down. Snip.it it's a web application created that clips news articles and lets you arrange them like in a Pinterest-like format. Yahoo bought them for the numbers being bandied around about $10 million. And Snippet, the service has been shut down already. Users have the option to download their data for a month from now until February 21st. Now, Yahoo's picked up a bunch of companies since October. They picked up Stamped in October, which is a recommendations app, which it then shut down. It picked up On the Air in December, which it then shut down, which is a video chat startup. And now it picked up Snippet and then shut them down. Natalie, do you think Yahoo absorbing these smaller companies seems like a smart move, or should they be keeping these smaller projects under a Yahoo brand?
Well, would Snippet have sued if they took all 10 of these employees? Probably not. So it says that they wanted more the talent here than the actual product. So, and they said the users have, I think, another month to export their data. It's interesting that they don't kind of keep it as it is and then merge it into a Yahoo product. But I think they learned that lesson with Flickr, where they kept it as is and then merged into a Yahoo product. And that was a big old mess. So, yeah, this is an interesting strategy.
Tom, do you think
I want to see what I want to see what ends up out of this strategy. I want to see, okay, you've got all this talent. I think Natalie's right. That's what they're after. What are you going to do with it? Because you close down all these projects, you're obviously using those people for something, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, we were talking about this week, how Yahoo seems to be having trouble attracting people, attracting talent to their company. It seems like them going out of they're going to buy companies outright, and then that's the way they will acquire this talent. It seems like it's a different approach than just saying, hey, why don't we just hire you away? They're just going to buy these companies and shut them down. I mean, this is kind of like an Apple approach where they just buy and then tear apart and use these engineers for other tasks. I'm really curious what Yahoo's going to do with this in their news world or their content world. And is there anything that Yahoo can do in their content presentation? Will a Pinterest-like presentation make their news source a more trafficked site? Does anybody think that's what's going to happen?
Well, they tried social with Yahoo Buzz because Yahoo News is still such a heavily trafficked page for news, and then they put Yahoo Buzz up for a while, and those of us who were working on Buzz Out Loud at the time were outraged. You guys remember that?
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, nothing really came of that. So it's not to say that they shouldn't keep trying, but they haven't had a lot of success when it comes to social integration of their key products.
I think we will see a new Yahoo coming. I don't know when, but I think there's going to be a big revamp, a big unveil. They're going to start adding a bunch of new features. They've already started to be kind of out on the conference circuit, touting the fact that someone needs to reimagine the portal for the 2010s or whatever this decade is going to be called. So I would expect this to happen soon. I guess we should start keeping a checklist of all these different apps and companies that they've been gobbling up to see if we can figure out how they contributed to this whenever Yahoo does unveil it. Also got a story in GigaOM today and The Verge about Netflix and YouTube teaming up on a way to send video to your television. It's being compared to AirPlay, but it's not quite AirPlay, right?
Not really. So those two companies are working together. This thing's called Discovery and Launch, and it's shortened to Dial. That's the protocol I'll be calling this. What Dial does, it allows the system allows you to show content you can see on your mobile device, on your smart TV or set-top box. But unlike Miracast or AirPlay, which is either streaming or mirroring the content from the mobile device, Dial allows the mobile device to launch the same app on the smart TV or set-top box. So if you have Netflix on your phone, your television can start the Netflix app that way. Dial's already apparently supported by Google TVs, and GigaOM sources say that some Samsung and LG TVs have partial support. Tom, do you think the combination of two major content providers, like YouTube and Netflix, can get Dial off the ground?
Yeah, I mean, if anything can get a new standard like this off the ground, it's some major push from behind like that. And Hulu is apparently already registered. I think Sony has registered on this with Crackle. So they've got that part solved. Usually that's the hard part, is getting the content providers to all agree to use something. What's interesting about this to me, and I'm conflicted about it, is that it doesn't actually send the video to your television. It requires the app you're using to already be on the television. And of course, that's why it's important to get these big names on board. There'll be a YouTube app, be a Netflix app on your television or on your Sony PS3 or whatever it is that you're using. And so I guess that makes it elegant, right? I don't have to rely on my internal network and the vagaries of that. I'm just saying, hey, launch this app and play this. That is actually how the Google Nexus Q worked with YouTube. I was skeptical about it, but it worked really well as long as you had good connectivity. On the other hand, what if I have something that isn't available on the device I've got hooked up to my television or isn't on the smart TV platform that I happen to be using? This isn't going to help me with that. Well, so maybe that's not what it's for. I mean, you know, there's already DLNA and stuff like that.
Yeah, I'm also wondering about the bandwidth connection, because now you've got two devices requiring connectivity to play the same thing. So you're going to double up on the bandwidth that you need. And then you're right about something that you might have on your device that you want to play on a bigger screen that's just not part of these apps. And a lot of times, I hate to keep, bringing up the kid example, but I'll have shot a super cute video of my kids and then want to play it, on a bigger screen for the whole family. And that, if I haven't published it anywhere, that's what she thinks about it. Then
yeah, she's feeding you the lines. That's why you have to talk about her.
She is, yeah. Just right in my ear. So that's also a limitation, but you're right. I think it sets a good precedence that these companies are on board.
So if the smart TV or set-top box doesn't have the app, Dial does allow the mobile device to tell the set-top box, hey, go look for the app. So if it's not on the device already, you can at least search for it, assuming there is one. I mean,
right, if it's been developed for that platform. But now you got to develop apps for all these multiple platforms. That's an issue.
What's been driving me nuts about this whole thing is that, another thing, like I just had either my laptop or an iPad, or friends were asking me this simple question of, how do I get the content from here onto the TV? And there's like 500 different answers because there's no one solution still. So I don't know if having a double app world is going to set it up, and that do developers want to bother to have an app for a Samsung Smart TV and then one for the phone so they can interact together. But major companies like having Google and YouTube doing this, and Netflix is pretty much on everything already, so I'm not sure if that's a big deal. But YouTube moving things that way, maybe it's a start.
My problem with this is it's kind of a problem we've created inorganically. It's sort of, I say it's created by digital rights management, because we already have the ability to, technologically speaking, to wirelessly send any video from any device to a television, as long as that television has a network connection of some kind. That's not hard. What's hard is authorizing. What's hard is limiting what people can do with that. What's hard is making sure they're not sending pirated video over there. So I don't know that I love this idea, in that it's making some things easier that shouldn't have been hard to begin with, if that makes any sense. But I guess we have to live with it, at least for now. Let's finish up with Best Buy giving you 50% off for a while on Monday. It was a holiday here in the United States for a lot of people, Martin Luther King Jr. Day. The Consumerist has an article how Best Buy, having a Martin Luther King Jr. Day sale, issued an online coupon for $50 off when you spent $100 and used a MasterCard. So it was a joint promotion with the MasterCard credit card to try to get people to use their MasterCard. That makes sense as far as it goes. They had some exclusions. You couldn't buy a prepaid cell phone with it. You couldn't get iPods. Certain brands of TVs and cameras were excluded. But they did not exclude gift cards for some reason. And so there's stories out there about people buying $7,500 worth of Amazon gift cards and getting $50 off for every $100 that they bought, because there was also no exclusion of one coupon per customer. Shoppers were buying scads of gift cards, and by early afternoon, Best Buy had to come out and say, we issued it with the wrong restrictions. This is supposed to be only one per customer. It's only good for a day now. It had been good for 6 days, and you can't buy gift cards with it anymore, as well as a few other restrictions that they had missed. I mean, I talked about this on the morning stream today as well, but Natalie, in the world where we have the ability to easily issue these sorts of discounts and stuff, is it just that companies get lazy when they put out these problems? Because I feel like we hear about them a lot more now with internet coupons than we ever did with printed coupons.
I don't know. It's so funny because did they just have the B team implementing this discount? Like, you think of these kind of things, right? It's such a rookie move. I really can't figure out how it would have happened. And we used to talk a lot about user agreements, and like these are things that are combed over with a fine-tooth comb. So why did their legal team not see this? I can't figure it out. I don't know.
Maybe it's a bit of viral marketing. They're like, well, let's put this out right now because everyone's going to talk about Best Buy. They're going to try to use a coupon that doesn't work anymore, but they're going to buy stuff anyway. because this shouldn't be. This should have been caught early on. And I've seen. I mean, sometimes people just forget to put the boilerplate. They just didn't hit Command V. It says limit one per customer or whatever. It could be pretty much anything. But who talked about Best Buy anyway?
That. Yeah. Is it a copy paste error on the restrictions?
Or it's the wrong version was saved and published instead of the revised one. Someone didn't upload it or use their Dropbox.
Do any of you think that we have a responsibility as consumers not to take full advantage of these kinds of offers? I mean, the consumerist itself even said, I don't know who to hate more here, Best Buy for messing up or some of these people who just took it to extreme in buying gift cards when you know that that's not what this was meant to be used for. Yeah, I agree.
Eloquently said. I can't add anything to that.
No, people in the chat room are like, nope.
That's actually a pretty brilliant insight. It's just blah, 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 blah.
So no, it's all the corporations is what the chat room says.
Yeah, I think so too. I think not to the buyer beware, it's to the seller beware in this case.
Best Buy, blah, blah, blah. All right, let's move along to the calendar. Sarah Lane out today, as we mentioned. She'll hopefully be back tomorrow. We expect her back tomorrow, but I'll handle the calendar for a day in her absence. Microsoft confirms the Windows RT update bug. If you have an RT Surface tablet, you may have had problems with the Windows update. They say, well, I have a fix, I don't know, sometime first week of February. We're on it. White House has announced a National Day of Civic Hacking from June 1st to June 2nd. So 24 hours of civic hacking. They're inviting people to focus on that day on any of the data that has been made open by the U.S. government to try to come up with new ways to analyze it, use it, provide services with it. So that's kind of cool. The ATIV Odyssey is hitting Verizon January 24th for a mere $50. Of course, it's a rebate thing, so you have to lay out $100 and then you get $50 back. But that is a Windows phone that people have been pretty excited about. Microsoft and Nokia will announce their earnings tomorrow. That's January 24th. And this very afternoon, the Pebble Watch is shipping. There are pictures of it being put in boxes. They still don't have an app approved on the iOS store, but I assume that that's coming. Let's see what's happening incoming.
Incoming message.
We got a message from Ali, a.k.a. 40 Thieves, in chat. Hey, TNT crew, just some quick thoughts on the Mozilla developer phone. Firstly, I think you have to approach this announcement from a different perspective to traditional tech stories. Mozilla is a radically open company. You can download and inspect their work daily if you wish, significantly different to Apple's and even Google's approach. This means that there's going to be developers playing around with the platform early. They want some hardware to test properly on. And that's why I think the phones are aimed at developers and not ready for consumers. Personally, if I can take my already mobile-optimized website, add a few small bits of code, and get a Mozilla phone app, I'm definitely going to do it. I think that's the developers who they're aiming for, web developers who want their app into an app store, because apparently consumers think that software only comes from app stores.
Yeah, and 40 Thieves, he had a longer email where he talked a lot about the implications for this on HTML5 and the fact that Mozilla is trying to drive the standard forward with this development. I don't think we were confused that Mozilla was putting these devices out for consumers. We're just wondering if the Firefox OS is going to appeal to consumers down the road. But point taken from 40 Thieves, Mozilla isn't really so consumed with user behavior at the end of the day as much as it is kind of making the world a better place. Do you buy that?
I mean, that's why people gravitated to the Mozilla browser in the first place, right? Firefox was kind of like it was for nerds. This is the first people who knew what it was. We were excited about it. And then it was just a better product for a while. When it started doing that whole horrible memory leak thing, that's when consumers started going, okay, I need to go somewhere else because all my nerd friends say that this is no good. So the thing is, if the operating system will be like Firefox in the beginning or Firefox at the end.
Are you in any way excited about the Firefox OS, Natalie?
Oh, I just want to see what it can do. I just want to see what it can do for the development community and see what, like I said, I was listening to you yesterday and you sort of talked it through backwards, that if developers are happy, the apps are better. And if the apps are better, then the consumer is happy. And if the consumer's happy, then the phone sells. I don't know that I can think of another example of ways in which it works backwards like that, but I'm happy to see it work for once. Or I don't know. I haven't given it a complete thought. A lot of times when you make employees happy, then the product is better. So if that pans out, then yes. That's a long answer to a yes, maybe.
Yeah, sure. I want to thank 40 Thieves for the email too. It's always good to get insight on that and kind of bring us back. We're consumer focused, but this is a developer focused instance, and he may be right that Mozilla doesn't really care at this point so much about what the consumer thinks about it. They want to get developers excited because they want to pursue a standard. They want to push the envelope on this sort of stuff. So appreciate the insight, 40 Thieves. And that is it for this episode of Tech News Today. Natalie Morris, thanks so much to you and Ava Morris for joining us.
Yeah, you're welcome. I'm sorry about this. Like I said, I thought I had childcare today and it didn't work out that way. But, at least she was fairly quiet and fairly passionate about the stories.
Well, yeah, she spoke up at all the right moments. Actually, it was really fun having Ava along. That was really cool. Let folks know where they can find you online, what you're up to, and all that good stuff.
Okay, well, my husband and I were working on an iPad app, so that actually helped me to prepare a little bit better. It's called Read Quick, and it's an iPad app that lets you speed read your way through the news. So since I had very limited time between naps today, I was able to read all the links that you sent me for the show, save them in Pocket, and then speed read. So check that out at readquick.com or look it up in the App Store. And I'm still freelancing for various news outlets, and I have my mommy blog if you're interested in how I deal with being a mom. It's mommybeta.com.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Natalie, for joining us. Good to see you again.
Yeah, thanks for the invite. It was really good to see you guys again, too.
You bet.
You can always find our subreddit at technewstoday.reddit.com. Place to suggest stories for us. You can email us. Our email address is tnt@twit.tv. You can find us on the web, all of our episodes, links to show notes and such at twit.tv/TNT. And you can call and leave us a voicemail. Let us know what your insight is. You an expert in one of these particular things? We got the smartest audience in podcasting out there. Our phone number is 260-TNT Show. We'll be back tomorrow with Danny Sullivan from Search Engine Land and CNET. We'll see you then.